Hi and welcome back. Nancy Bovier here with Agape and Next Steps. And today I wanted to address Generation X. A little bit ago I did a video and we talked about the millennials. The millennials, of course, are getting all the press, including being made fun of for their avocado toast. And that's because of the expected transference of wealth from their baby boomer parents to them. And of course, that's what's capturing all of the attention, all of the news right now. But Generation X is kind of almost the forgotten generation. They're the sandwich generation. They're between the boomers and the millennials. The oldest of the Gen X's were born in 1965 and the oldest were born in 1980. So in that cohort, they ended up kind of crunched in between the two biggest cohorts since they've been keeping records, the baby boomers followed by the millennials. As a result, they kind of ain't got no respect. Nobody's talking about Gen X's. Nobody talks about the challenges that they're putting up with. So I wanted to do this video to speak about the challenges for Gen X. Because after all, the oldest of the Gen X's are turning 59 this year, and the youngest of them are going to be 44. So they are also approaching retirement. Their children will be coming of age where their children will be in university and leaving the nest, and they're going to be left with their challenges. So let's dive in and talk about some of the challenges that Gen X had. So on top of kind of being ignored, they also came of age when we kind of had back-to-back recessions. There was tight job markets. We kept losing value in our stock markets. Our corporations, our companies were laying people off. It was a very, very difficult financial time. And of course, the boomers, everybody else, lived through those same eras, those same years, but we weren't coming out of school, coming out of university and trying to get established. Theoretically, at least, the boomers already were established. Some of them were retiring already when some of these events were happening, rather than trying to establish our place in the world. So they were faced with the challenges of getting a strong foundation, a financial foothold at a young age coming out of school. They also were a quite educated generation, and as a result, there's student debt that they had to contend with. So they're also called the sandwich generation because many of them were caring for older parents at the same time that they were raising their own children and trying to stay employed and find that work-life balance. Speaking of work-life balance, Gen X's were the first people who actually brought attention and focus to the idea of work-life balance. They, unlike the predecessors who just worked whatever was required, worked to get ahead, became workaholics. Now granted, some Gen X's, I'm positive, you cannot make a generalization about every individual within a certain generational cohort. And I'm sure that there are a great number of Gen X's that, just like other generations, are workaholics, take a great deal of time doing that. But by and large, that generation did try to focus on a work-life balance. And they showed that as a result, there's less stress, and with less stress comes better health. In addressing these traits of a generation, I wanted to emphasize the concept of Gen X's and preparation for their retirement. As I mentioned earlier, they are now in middle age and approaching their 60s, which gets close to a retirement age, a traditional retirement age. People are not retiring like they used to, but a traditional retirement age. And so they have to be taking a look and preparing for their aging well and for their retirement years and how they're going to live well as they age. Studies have shown that they've only saved about 60% of what is anticipated that they're going to need during their retirement. There's still obviously some time for them to hopefully make up some of that money, but that has to factor into some of their decision making on going forward. Unlike the millennials, they're very unlikely to be inheriting property, houses, and they're certainly not going to get all of that intergenerational wealth that was accumulated by the boomer generation and being passed on to the millennials. So where does that leave them? It leaves them with doing what they do best. They're kind of survivors. Stuck in the middle, the sandwich generation, they've learned to survive despite economic frailty. They've learned how to survive despite economic downturns and low interest rates and poor results, unemployment, a lot of the issues, political and otherwise, that we're having globally. They have learned to be resilient, and maybe that's what they should be known as the resilient generation. So I'm confident that they will navigate their aging plan as well. However, I would caution that we need to take steps now to make sure that things are going to be better later. We're living longer lives, we're living healthier lives, we're living more active lives. So how do you make sure that you're doing that after you retire or as you age? So if you're one of the youngest, if you're turning 44 this year, start to plan now. If you haven't already, make sure that you have all of your documents in place. Make sure that you have a plan laid out. Like every plan, it has to be a resilient and a robust plan that is also agile enough to navigate through any issues that may come up. And you may be able to prepare for some of those, things like disease or any kind of chronic ailments that you may have if you have had physical injuries that may impact your health going forward. Take into account all of those issues when you are making your aging plan, and then that will help you to navigate those bumps in the road when they do occur. However, you may not have any notice, so make sure that there's a bit of a contingency in your plan. The main thing is to make sure that you have your financial plan in place, that you have your legal plan in place, that you have your health directive in place, and that those people who you trust, who you have closest to you, know what your wishes are. Be clear on what your wishes are. We have talked about MAID in the past, medical assistance in death. I'm going to bring that up again. Our younger generations are more and more tolerant and more in favor of expanding our MAID laws here in Canada. And I think that if it's appropriate, include those plans in your aging plan. We're going to be talking about that, as I say, again in the future. It's as somebody in the senior space, in the aging industry, once said to me, we're not living longer, we're dying longer. And there's certainly some truth to that. So I'll leave that with you for today. Let's not forget about Gen X. They are as valued members of society as the boomers and as the millennials, and I think it's Gen Z that's coming up now. We all play a part. We all have our roles. We all are integral pegs in how our society functions. So make sure that you are planning as well, Gen X's, and I look forward to talking to you all again. Thanks, and bye for now.